Well, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd like to state it's great to be playing meaningful games in November. Old wise football coach once told me they remember November, and we're in the heart of November and playing a meaningful football game this week. It was great. A little bit of recap on last week's game. It's a tremendous victory for our program. It's just because so many storylines and the long history that Wyoming has had with the Air Force Academy. It's gone back years and years and years with countless number of memorable games. I've been texted by many of our either fans or followers through the years, and that certainly was one of the more memorable Wyoming Air Force games. So it was an excellent win over a good program, a really good program, and we've got a great deal of respect for Air Force, and the games have been competitive. It was great to see our football team deal with adversity and overcome adversity. I also think that there's a bedrock resolve within our football program to keep plugging along and winning and keep believing. And that bedrock belief, I think, is a credit to the men in that locker room, and then also our assistant coaches, because you don't go through the type of season that we've had with some adversity and keep on moving forward. So we need to build on that. Going into this next game, Sean Chambers will not be with us. We were hopeful at the beginning that it wouldn't be something that would be surgical, but it will be surgical. So his season's over. It was great to have him out there competing. He had a great deal of value to our football team. And the status of Nico, I would say, would be day by day. We'll find out a little bit more as we go, but it's going to be day by day with Nico. So Tyler Vanderwall really came in and played exceptionally well, and that's and he and I had an extended conversation in my office about his role as a backup player. You never know when your number is going to be called, and you have to be prepared. And he certainly was. So it was great to see him go out and make some plays, and he'll be the starter this next week. It was a typical Air Force game. It was a hard-fought, physical game. We got a lot of guys that are going to be able to play against New Mexico, but I think that we're probably certainly more banged up or sore than what we normally have had after games. The other thing was it was win number 5. And that means a lot to our program, and so it certainly was a rewarding win for us, not only with beating a front-range opponent, but playing in the snow. That was a classic type of game that people that will always remember, and I certainly will as a Cowboys football coach. On to New Mexico, big challenge. I've known Bob Davie for many, many years when he was the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. And a great deal of respect for Coach Davies. Operated well as a head football coach. Coached against him when he was at Notre Dame and then at New Mexico, and their teams are always well prepared. Coach Cosgrove is an excellent defensive coordinator as well. He and I both served at different times as defensive coordinator at the University of Nebraska, and their defense always plays well against us. They're aggressive. And so we've got a great deal of respect for New Mexico. Going to Albuquerque will be a big challenge. It'll be another opportunity for our football team to play. A little bit about New Mexico. First of all, I'd say they're very explosive on offense. They've got excellent skill players. Their offensive sets lend themselves to explosive plays, and they have the skill players to do it. They are rotating quarterbacks right now, and that poses a challenge in itself. But there's a lot of big plays that occur out there. They've got a big athletic offensive line that always seems to be on point. They operate out of a 3-4 defense, which through the years has given us problems. They're a attacking, stinging type defense, and it's going to require us to come up with big plays. For us to put points on the board, we're going to need to have some big plays. Their special teams, they've got the #1 punt return unit in the country. Spearheaded by Marcus Hayes. He's a great punt returner. He's averaging close to 19 yards a return, so they can flip the field over. So, their record, I don't think, is any way close to the indication of the type of football team. They have been hot and cold. we're going to assume that they're going to play really hot against us. They always seem to, and so we'll need to be prepared as we get on the plane to go down to Albuquerque on Friday. I had breakfast with a lot of our players today. There is an energized football team. Our guys are really excited. They are drained. It was a hard-fought game, but the attitude and the mentality of this team is really running at a high pace right now, which is encouraging because of all the ups and downs we've had this season. So at this time, I will open it up to any questions anybody may have out there. Yes, Robert.
So Sean, is ankle or leg, and just to follow up that with Tyler, obviously he's played football for you, so is it just move forward with him? Do things change dramatically, I guess, or how would you kind of approach that?
Well, first of all, the feedback that we gotten from the doctors was there's a break in part of Sean's leg. I saw the highlight of the tape. He got bent over. That's part of football. And the encouraging thing is the outlook would be really encouraging for him to have a full recovery. The collateral damage off an injury like that, typically the guys come back at 100%. When I was in college, I broke both bones in my leg, and I got faster. The only difference was I wasn't very fast to start with. So Sean's in a little bit different case, but we anticipate he'll be back full speed. Concerning what we do offensively, we'll continue to rework the playbook. There are certain things that Tyler does well that actually he was doing better than Sean, and I thought he showed those things in the game. And so we'll look at what he does well, what our offense is doing well right now. We've gone from not hardly scoring any points to being somewhat productive now. I would say more than somewhat productive. And so we'll look and cull through our playbook what we do with our offensive players to try to score as many points as we can. Yes.
Follow up on Robert's question. On a personal note, on the sideline, watching Tyler Vanderwall go through those series, emotionally, how was that for you? Were you really excited? Was it a little bit of anxiety?
Oh, anytime you change quarterbacks, there's a certain amount of anxiety because there's a different tempo with each guy and how they lead. You know what? Tyler responded really well, and there was a reason why we made the change. We felt like we needed to spark the offense, and so when he walked out and threw that strike for a touchdown, I mean, he drilled the ball, and I think that play signified, hey, I'm here to play. I'm not going to go out and just try to manage this game. And so he took that, I think, that to another step forward, and he competed. I mean, he made plays that he had not made. He made some against Wofford, but I mean, he made some exceptional plays. And so it was really encouraging. I also thought it was encouraging to see during the course of this, all the ups and downs, how Tyler had been supportive of Sean and then vice versa. And that also, I think that embodies what's going on in that locker room. I mean, that is kind of a microcosm of, potential, quote, offense-defensive splits, which we've never had. You've got two quarterbacks that are vying for a starting spot. You don't have controversy. And those are the things that are allowing our football team to continue to win. Yes.
With Sean, do you know if there's any ligament damage or anything else other than just a break?
You know what? The information that I've been given is that it's a break. There's no ligament damage in there, but they are going to do surgery. And so anytime you do surgery, that's pretty serious. But I can't tell you, sometimes there can be deep ankle sprains that are very similar to a fracture. And so the word I got was he's going to be back. He'll be back at 100%.
Has surgery been scheduled?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
With Nico's situation, then, is it more of a sprain than having a break in there or something?
Yeah, that's a sprain, and we just don't know sometimes guys can play with sprained ankle, sometimes you can't. And so that's why I say it'll be day by day with Nico. Yes, Robert.
Well, with Tracy, I know Javon Bigelow also left the game. His status, and if Valladay made some plays.
Yeah, X made some big time plays. Particularly, he's got that knack on fourth down, and so we'll find out a little bit more on Javon. His injury is a little bit different than Nico's. It was a rib injury, and the severity. Everybody deals with that differently. Whether it's a bruise or break, we'll find out a little bit more on that. But we feel really good about X, and he made a nice run for a touchdown there. Yes.
Coach,
it's a different system than Air Force, but does the framework help your defense in going back to back with these two opponents?
No. I would say it is. It's pretty significantly different, and it's significantly different than what they did last year. And they have a new offensive coordinator, and you can see a different flavor in their offense, and so there are some similarities, but to put them under the same umbrella, kind of like what we used to do, that's really not accurate. They're more of a spread offense that's going to throw the ball and stretch you downfield and move guys around. So it's a little bit different style of offense. Yes, Robert.
I know obviously you talk a lot about Andrew Wingert and the tackles and everything, and granted the tackles numbers are down, but that other guys are making plays in front of him, which I'm sure is a good thing. But that maybe the tackle numbers are down. Is in your mind, is he playing his best football?
I think he is. You know what? He's. I thought he had a really good game Saturday night, and they had a plan for him, and kudos to Air Force. But yeah, he's playing well, and he's been a great leader, and he'll need to play well this Saturday.
Greg, following up on that a little bit, obviously it's been well documented that you guys were the only FBS school to give him a scholarship offer. What did you guys see when you recruited him that made you guys offer him and think that he could produce the way he's producing?
Some of it is his DNA, and I'd like to think that we probably value that maybe a lot more than a lot of other programs do. I had the pleasure to actually coach his father when I was a young freshman coach in Nebraska, so we knew the family, and saw his athleticism. He was a running back in high school. He's a high hurdler. A lot of people may not have projected him over on defense, but we felt like he could be a heck of a safety. And so we watched him, and we offered him, believed in him, and a lot of the other schools. I mean, he was evaluated by everybody in this region, and everybody in this region didn't feel like he was a Division I player. We were firmly convinced that he was. The other attribute about Andrew is his competitive nature. We also knew he was a risk taker. I think I made him hang up his skis. He was I don't know if you can, they're double black diamonds or whatever, wherever the most dangerous slopes that he was skiing. And I said, that's done. And his dad promised me it was done. That gave you an idea. He's going to do everything Mach 1, and he's going to live life to his fullest, and he plays football that way.
Did you ever think he would produce at this level the way
when he was a freshman, I remember talking to Coach Mallory because he was kind of buried down in the depth chart, and I kept on telling, I said, hey, you need to look at this guy over here. He's got a real knack for the football. He can see things. What I did not anticipate was his tackling ability. I mean, he's got really good tackling ability, and he's really smart and instinctive. And so that's exceeded my expectation. We thought he'd be really good, but not to this degree. Yes, Tracy.
Like the process you took in recruiting him, does that kind of underlie your philosophy of what you need to do here to find players?
You know what? That's a great point or a question, and I'm going to answer it. When I first sat down with Tom Berman, we talked about what would make Wyoming special, and my assessment was this was a developmental program. When the Cowboys were really good, they had players who may not have been super heavily recruited. Sometimes they changed positions, but they were the guys that wanted to come in and be part of a team, and they needed to work to get better. And so that's been our philosophy from recruiting, and that has not changed. And so we've tried to place things in with our facilities and our coaching style to develop players, and Andrew's one of those guys. I think he was probably 172 pounds dripping wet, and when he stood sideways, you couldn't hardly see him. And then he grew long hair, and that probably put a couple more pounds on him. But that embodies what we're about, Andrew Wingert. And, Andrew Wingert has come to Wyoming, and for those seniors, the last time they ran out on War Memorial, that was a big deal for them. And we said all along that we were looking for more players that wanted to play for the University of Wyoming as opposed to at the University of Wyoming. And that may sound like a slight difference, but there's a big, big difference.
2 years ago when you got, I guess, on the trip on the plane ride to New Mexico, you guys found out you'd be playing the Mountain West Championship game, and wasn't anything on the line. You guys didn't play well.
I played terrible.
Yeah.
Played terrible.
I guess with bowl eligibility on the line, I guess you don't have to worry about lack of motivation.
You know, when I met with the players this morning, informally at breakfast, you know, that's a chatter.
Yeah.
They all know 6 wins is a big deal. We can't control what's out there, but we can control our focus and preparation this week. And as I said, the opening statement that I made coming into this press conference, to be playing meaningful games in November at Wyoming, that's a lot. And we take that seriously, and it's not taken for granted. And so, particularly this year, I mean, this year, if you look at, you know, all the ups and downs and some of the challenges that were out there, and to be in this position where we're in our last week and this game means a lot, there's a lot of teams that I think would have spit the bit out and said the heck with it. And so we're excited about that. And you hit the nail on the head. I remember being on the plane and landing and finding out and walking into our dinner, and I addressed our football team and said, you know what, guys, we're going to be hosting the game. Or I knew we were maybe not hosting the game, but I knew that we were going to be in the game. It was almost like the air went out of the room. It was like, okay, we did our job. And New Mexico took us to the woodshed on national TV, and it was an embarrassment. And so we've got a great deal of respect for New Mexico. We know what they're well capable of. Yes.
You mentioned, you know, obviously you got to take care of business and get to 6, and then it's out of your control. But do you get a sense that if you get there, that there will be a bowl game or there will be another game afterwards?
You know what, those things, Robert, I can't. I sit on the competition committee, and we had long discussions about bowl games and, you know, what's a team is deserving of a bowl game, and we really drew a hard line in the sand, saying that the 5 and 7 teams, whether they're deserving or not, we need to at least have that as a backstop so bowls don't go dark. But we all felt that a 6 and 6 team was deserving. Now, how many bowls are out there and how the 6 and 6 teams are, or 7 teams and things like that, I haven't even done the math. I know we've been in there grinding on that tape. And I also know that I will say this, in my mind, the Mountain West Conference is a great football conference. And so I think it speaks well for us if we can position ourselves to come up with 6 wins. That certainly means a lot in our league. If you look at the teams that we played, there's a lot of teams that are in the top 25, and I think so. Our competition level has been excellent. So there won't be any campaigning on my part. I'm stating a fact. I also know this is we got a big challenge to play New Mexico.
Coming into this year, you talked a little bit about how much it means to play meaningful games, but to be in contention for your 3rd straight bowl appearance at a program where you took over in the state that it was in, what does that mean to you to have this program?
We're striving for consistency. I talked to Tom Berman about trying to get away from the major ups and downs, and that's easier said than done. This year's been a challenging year, but my sense is that our program is the players expect to win, and there's a belief that you just don't win by showing up. You got to put in a lot of hard work, and you got to believe in each other. There's a system that's in place. You need to play discipline, and I think some of the losses we had were as a result of not being as disciplined as what we should have been, but we've got back on track. And so, we're so focused right now on what we got to do to win this game. But as I said, to walk in this room at the tail end in November and saying, we got a lot on the line, I think that there's some seasoned media people in this room. I know you're new, but you stated a fact. There's a lot of years you came in here at the end of this year, and it was check this box off, and walk out the door, because there really wasn't much to talk about. There's a lot to talk about. Yes.
I know the weekly CJ Colgan update. Is there any chance in this?
I got indication this morning from our trainer that it looked very doubtful. That may get overturned by the doctor. So I would say that's doubtful right now. That's one of those things that we talked about when you play, and when you play that non-conference schedule, you know, I know retracing a lot of things. We talked about Washington State. Some people I don't think had any idea how good they were. They were a good football team, and then we walked into a buzzsaw. And we played Missouri the next week. He's still dealing from that big tight end hit. So I would say it'd be doubtful at best.